New documents were produced to us finally in our litigation to try to get the records about what went on at that Clinton-Lynch Tarmac meeting. You remember the meeting that took place last year where Attorney General Lynch, then President Obama's Attorney General, coincidentally met with President Bill Clinton just shortly before Hillary Clinton was supposed to testify. And they met on Attorney General Lynch's airplane at the Phoenix airport in Arizona. It caused quite a scandal. The Justice Department went into cover-up mode or spin mode, however you want to describe it. And even the Attorney General Lynch described the meeting as something that cast a cloud over her investigation into the Clinton email matter. And certainly even James Comey was spooked by the communications between Lynch and Clinton at that sensitive time, and took it upon himself to pretend to be Attorney General for a time in an abusive way. So it really was a significant scandal, and one which is still reverberating today. As you know, there are still calls for an investigation, a criminal investigation of what went on there. But Judicial Watch doesn't wait for the government to do things. We do things independently. It's a great system we have here in the United States that allows groups like Judicial Watch to ask for information independently. It doesn't get to us as quickly and timely as we like sometimes, but we're still getting the documents. What happened here is we sued for the records after we were given the proverbial hand to the face by the administration, the prior administration. Actually, we sued under the current administration, so we got the hand to the face from both administrations. And we have finally gotten records. We got 2 batches of records. The first batch we got about a month ago. They showed communications between the media and the Justice Department about the Clinton-Lynch Tarmac meeting. The media started getting word of it. They started asking the Justice Department questions. So some back and forth there. Not terribly newsworthy, other than that seemingly the Washington Post and the New York Times wasn't terribly interested in covering this story. Surprise, surprise. It looked like they were kind of forced into it. The reporters were. They were almost apologetic in the emails about even asking the questions. But secondly, we got the big batch of documents just this week, and it's really outrageous because they just show, again, the media interest here in the investigation, and the Justice Department trying to figure out what the response is. And as they try to figure out what the response is, they are drafting talking points. And these talking points are really the method, that's what they use to talk about the case. So when Lynch is asked questions, when top Justice Department officials are asked questions, and yes, they're communicating with the FBI about this issue. When the FBI is asked questions, they rely on these talking points. Well, the talking points are completely blacked out. You heard that right. They're blocked out. Again, they weren't blacked out by Attorney General Lynch. They weren't blacked out by James Comey. They weren't blacked out by Barack Obama. They were blacked out by the Justice Department, run by Attorney General Sessions, an appointee of President Trump. Isn't that outrageous? And the excuse they use to black the records out, they call it its redaction, the legal phrase is, it's under B5, and B5 is an exemption that you can invoke under FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act, which allows government agencies to withhold information. And this B5 exemption allows the government to withhold information because it's deliberative, it's pre-decisional, it's draft. And so as a result, they don't want to chill government deliberations by releasing this material for fear of people whose ideas are cast aside or seen as foolish or not acted upon. They don't feel bad about themselves. They call it, they don't want to chill government deliberations by leaking information about them. If you're skeptical of that, I share your skepticism, because that is a giant loophole for keeping information away from the American people about cover-ups and other malicious and mendacious behavior by the federal government. And so it's really surprising and frankly jaw-dropping that the Trump administration is blacking out this key information about that infamous Clinton-Lynch Tarmac meeting. This is the information, these talking points are how they spun the scandal. And we can't get access to that under this Trump administration. They're making a discretionary call to black out this information. And frankly, President Trump should directly order the release of these records. That's what he should do. So you can go ahead online. I should have printed out a few to show you here, but go online to our website at judicialwatch.org and click on the release about the Clinton Lynch Tarmac records, and you can look at all the records we received. And you'll see where they're blacked out. And you're going to be furious about it. And it's the Justice Department who is withholding this information from us. Again, run by the Attorney General of the United States, Jeff Sessions, appointed by President Trump. And it's terribly disappointing that now we are in August, the Justice Department is acting as if Hillary Clinton won the election, and acting in a way that continues to protect Hillary Clinton and the Obama administration. And it's got to change. It's got to change. And that's why we're in court, to force it to change and try to get around these battles. But the fact that we are in court battling the Trump administration on Clinton scandal information, to me, is just unbelievable. But nevertheless, we're going to keep on fighting, and we're going to get the information out, even if we're opposed by now Trump administration appointees in getting it done. Also, this week we have, along those lines, finally some significant new information. We've been getting a lot of it almost monthly from the State Department. These are Huma Abedin emails. Now, Huma Abedin, the top aide to Hillary Clinton at the State Department, close to her over decades, who had an email account on Mrs. Clinton's illicit email server, and she was doing government business on this email account, getting classified information on this email account, and obviously communicating with Hillary Clinton on this email account. So these new batch of documents, a whopping 1,600 documents or pages of documents we received from the Department of State. And they show, again, more pay for play, more abuses and mishandling of classified information, and more emails that Hillary Clinton had, but she did not turn over to the State Department as she promised. And this is a fun lawsuit, and it's an important one, because oftentimes when Judicial Watch goes to court to sue for records, we're representing ourselves. We ask for records, and if they don't give us the records within a certain time frame, or we don't like the withholdings they've made, or the redactions or blacking out of material, we can go to court. But other times we represent people who have also asked for records and aren't getting justice and aren't getting the records they're due under the law. And in this case, we're representing a retired FBI special agent. And his name is Jeffrey Danek. And Mr. Danek asked questions about Deputy Director Andrew McCabe's connections to Terry McAuliffe, a Clinton ally. And for those of you who don't know, Mr. McCabe was, I think, number 2 at the FBI under Comey. And the problem that he had was that his wife was running for public office, and she received, I think, a total of $707,000 from Terry McAuliffe and the party operation close to Terry McAuliffe. And McAuliffe, by the way, is a corrupt Clinton crony. He's governor of Virginia, but he's a corrupt Clinton crony. So his wife is running for public office, getting hundreds of thousands of dollars from this corrupt Clinton crony, who, by the way, was under FBI investigation. I don't know where that stands now. But McCabe didn't pull out or recuse himself from the Clinton probe. How did that work? Doesn't that seem like a conflict of interest to you? So Mr. Danek, the retired special agent, knows how to ask questions about his former agency. And he wants the text messages and emails of McCabe containing the phrases Dr. Jill McCabe, Jill, Common Good, Virginia, Terry McAuliffe, Clinton, Virginia Democratic Party, Democrat conflict, Senate, Virginia Senate, until I return, Paris, France, campaign, run, political wife, donation, OGC, email, or New York Times. Now, I went through that in detail to show you that the FBI has no excuse not to give Mr. Danek the records. And you can bet these text messages or emails are going to be enlightening to the public about what was going on with Mr. McAuliffe and the top official at the FBI. And Mr. Danek had a statement. I'll read you his statement. I am saddened by how the FBI's reputation has been tarnished by the poor judgment and ethics of its leadership. I know I'm not the only retired or serving FBI special agent who is concerned about Mr. McCabe's conflicts of interest on the Clinton email matter. The agency seems to be illegally hiding records about this scandal, which is why I'm heading to court with Judicial Watch. And so we're honored to be able to represent him. And we're so happy that others are also holding the government to account. And I tell you, he served this agency for decades, and when you have retired people willing to sue the agency, it shows you how the corruption issue is really damaging the FBI, which is so unaccountable in this town. It's frustrating, and so we're happy to do this work. Now, this is, I think, the fourth lawsuit Judicial Watch has filed with respect to Mr. McCabe. We have well over a dozen lawsuits now on this abuse and deep state targeting of Donald Trump and the conflicts of interest and related matters like that. And I tell you, there's no one else doing this. There's no one else doing this with in terms of the sheer volume, number of lawsuits, and I can't even tell you how many, because I don't know. I'd have to go and look in our database, how many Freedom of Information Act requests we have. Because we only file, one lawsuit perhaps for every 10 Freedom of Information Act requests we file. Now, that's a wild guess, but I think it's a pretty close one. So we are on top of this. And there are more coming about topics you care about, believe you me. So if there's something out there you're nervous about or worried about, and I know all the other scandals out there, believe you me, we track them all. We're asking questions on them, we're monitoring them, and when the opportunity arises and we don't get answers, we will sue in court. And we've demonstrated that time and time again, and we've demonstrated that when we take action, we get results. We exposed the Clinton email scandal, we exposed Benghazi, we exposed IRS, we're on top of the Comey scandal, we're getting court rulings still on Hillary Clinton's email scandal. She isn't going away, she's back. And we're going to hold her accountable, the State Department accountable, and all the other corrupt politicians, Republican and Democrat here in town, because this, as the president says, this swamp needs draining. And I would encourage the president to focus his administration on this accountability project that the Judicial Watch is leading, and target and tell his Justice Department to get on the ball. First thing up, we have new emails. New emails from Huma Abedin's email account, her non-state.gov email account. Now recall, Hillary Clinton had her private email account on her email server, and so did Huma Abedin. She was the only other official that we know of in the State Department who had a non-state.gov email account on this Hillary Clinton server, and she used it like Hillary Clinton did, contrary to law, for government business, including the handling and conveyance and receipt of classified information. But as a result of getting these documents, which we had to sue for, we have found new Clinton emails in Abedin's emails. So make that clear. We're getting new Hillary Clinton emails. Congress isn't getting them. The media isn't getting them. Judicial Watch is getting them. And we're releasing them to the American people. We've uncovered in this latest batch an additional 97 emails. We've gotten 20 batches over 2 years. It's taken us years to get these emails. This is the 20th batch, and we now have 627 emails that Hillary Clinton sent or received, but she did not turn over to the State Department initially. Remember, she said under oath, I think I turned over everything as far as I know. She said that in our court case, and before Congress, she was much more explicit. She said, I turned over everything I had that were government emails. Well, now we know that wasn't correct. 600 plus emails she did not turn over. These are government emails. We wouldn't get them if they weren't government emails. And what do these emails show? Overwhelming evidence of mishandling of classified information. Overwhelming evidence of pay-to-play scandals. And overwhelming evidence of other issues that I think the American people would care about. Now, the classified information is in many ways front and center, because when you put classified information on the internet equivalent of a public park bench, You place yourself at risk, you place the national security at risk, and you place the safety of the country and those people working to protect the country at risk. For instance, the highly sensitive name and email address of the person given the classified presidential daily brief was included in an email forwarded to Abedin's personal email account. Those names are protected for obvious reasons. These are our people on the front lines in intelligence gathering. We don't want the bad guys to know who they are. And this man is providing access information to the President of the United States, and his name is being mishandled in this improper way. And then we have email after email, and I can't go through them all because as best I can tell, I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 18, 20. Over 20 emails where Mrs. Clinton or Abedin sent or received improperly and contrary to law classified information. Emails cover Palestine discussions, discussions in the Middle East, Israel, discussions with foreign leaders at the UNESCO summit, a discussion related to military contributions to the Afghanistan war effort, classified information again about Afghanistan, classified information about U.S.-Mexico counter-drug operations, classified information about diplomatic discussions with foreign ministers of Algeria and Morocco, classified information about meetings in Uganda, classified information about elections in Burma, classified information about the Northern Ireland issue, classified information about personal conversations between the president and the Mexican, President Obama and the Mexican president. All this on unclassified material. How do we know the information is classified? Because the Justice Department and the State Department black it out when they give it to us, and they tell us that you can't have it because it's classified, because it relates to foreign affairs or national defense information or that type of category. Now, those of you who follow this story closely know that James Comey thought there was no crime, or no crime that should be fairly prosecuted by Mrs. Clinton's mishandling classified information. First of all, it wasn't just Mrs. Clinton who mishandled classified information. Abedin did, and so did a lot of the other senders and recipients here. So if you want to know why Hillary Clinton is protected, you should know that not just her is being protected, because there are others who have an interest in being protected too, including Abedin and current and former State Department officials. But Comey has incorrectly stated that the law was they needed intent. I think there already was intent, because Judicial Watch has other information showing, an email showing that Mrs. Clinton was warned about the security risks of using a non-governmental account, and she insisted on doing it anyway. But secondly, you don't need intent, especially for someone in Mrs. Clinton's position who is supposed to know better. Again, you leave stuff like this on the internet equivalent of a public park bench, and if you were anyone else, you would have been prosecuted. You would have been prosecuted. The other issues that have popped up are the pay-to-play allegations. And as I said on Fox News this morning, they're there in black and white. I encourage you to go to our internet site at judicialwatch.org. You can look at all the emails. I doubt we even covered all the emails in our press release that are out there and deserve further investigation and analysis. But we have Doug Band, who was a Clinton Foundation official, one of the top guys at the Clinton Foundation, who is communicating with Huma Abedin. Abedin was using this personal email account to take care of the pay-to-play operation for the Clinton Foundation. So Doug Band was emailing Huma Abedin, and we've seen this repeatedly. Again, this is our 20th production of documents. Our productions last year raised questions about Hillary Clinton's misconduct in ways that she didn't want to hear about. I don't think it's in her book. What happened is, to use a term of phrase popularized by Mrs. Clinton, she mishandled classified information in violation of the law. She turned her State Department into a fundraising machine for the Clinton Foundation. We've got the documents here. Doug Band is communicating with Abedin about getting someone, a Clinton donor company. There was a band they were working with. They wanted to get them visas to Cuba. Another donor was going through Doug Band, the Clinton Foundation head, or top executive, to get meetings set up by the State Department of the United States in Singapore. Other documents show that she was taking care of government assisting meetings for this is a good one, a request for assistance from the Russia-American Foundation. Isn't that interesting? So an entity called the Russia-America Foundation is going through the Clinton Foundation to get help from the State Department. And we've already seen this connection before. And of course, the State Department gave this group $260,000 under Hillary Clinton. So this pay to play is right in front of us. Another major Clinton donor, Baldas, D-A-S, he's a financier who raised a lot of money for the foundation, for the Presidential Foundation, asked Abedin if Clinton could address the Japan Society. She ended up doing that the next year. So it's all there, as I said, in black and white. Go and look at them. And there's another interesting document here. So you remember Huma Abedin's mother, who is controversial in her own right because of her alleged connections to the Muslim Brotherhood, her connections to the radical approach to Islamism. Well, guess what? When people were complaining about Huma Abedin having a security clearance in the State Department, and if anyone asked any tough questions about her family in relation to the security clearance process, you had both Republicans like John McCain and, of course, the hacks in the Democratic Party all screaming bloody murder about it. Well, it turns out her mother was helping Hillary Clinton draft talking points for a famous town hall Hillary Clinton conducted in Saudi Arabia. And guess what Huma Abedin's Islamist-type mother wanted to do? She advised Mrs. Clinton to keep out the words freedom and democracy. Freedom and democracy. Don't use, specifically, do not use the political terms such as democracy, elections, freedom. Do not use the term empowerment of women, say enabling women. I guess that's not too bad. Do not even mention driving for women, which, as you know, is a big issue in Saudi Arabia. Don't sound sympathetic to women's plight or be patronizing, as other visitors have done and made the students extremely annoyed. They rightly consider these as in-house issues. So the suppression of women, according to Abedin's mother, is an in-house issue for Saudi Arabia, and Hillary Clinton should stay out of it. And guess what? Hillary Clinton did stay out of it, because all this advice seemingly was taken by Hillary Clinton. We looked at her speech and transcript. So these emails show what happened with Hillary Clinton, as I said. And again, there's clear and mounting evidence of misconduct, potentially criminal, and I say that charitably. And I want to know why the Justice Department hasn't reinitiated an investigation here. I really want to know. Who is running the Justice Department? Who is running the FBI? Who is running the State Department? And again, why is Congress completely AWOL on this? Frankly, I see Jason Chaffetz as head of the Oversight Committee, formerly head of the Oversight Committee. He quit. I guarantee you one of the reasons he quit because Congress wouldn't do anything on investigations and oversight. I guarantee you. And Judicial Watch is doing the heavy lifting on all of this, and we're getting the information out that Hillary Clinton didn't want you to see, the Obama administration didn't want you to see, and that we're still facing stonewalling from the Trump administration. Next up is Hillary Clinton's, maybe Hillary Clinton's emails, but Abedin's emails from the infamous Wiener laptop. State Department's been sitting on those. We're going to find out this month, I think, when we're finally going to get them. And we'll see what happens there. Are they going to move quickly to release this information? My understanding is, and there's a new report today, and this is the good news, President Trump is the headline, Trump prods State Department to stop delaying release of Clinton emails. This is in the Washington Times. And the lead it's by Rowan Scarborough, who's a good reporter there. The White House has been privately urging the State Department to speed up its protracted process for releasing Hillary Clinton's still undisclosed emails. And maybe we can put a link in the feed here afterwards in the comment section of the various feeds. A person close to the discussion said State may shift gears and speed up its response to Freedom of Information Act requests. And Rowan quotes me at length talking about the extent the deep state is going to protect Hillary Clinton here. They've slowed the release of her emails. We know there are other Clinton emails they were reviewing and processing, and they've actually slowed that process. so much so that it won't be till 2020 till we get the full component of emails. And that's even before they review the Clinton emails and Aberdeen emails on the Clinton, on the Wiener laptop. Now, it is great to hear, and Judicial Watch is so excited to hear, the President's personal involvement here. Now, as you can imagine, I know a little bit about what's been going on. So this is why I'm frustrated, because I know, because I've told the White House, that we've got to get a transparency revolution here on Clinton emails, on the Russia scandal. And I know the White House at the highest levels wants to get this done, and this report confirms that. But why isn't it getting done? Why is the Justice Department ignoring the President? Why is the State Department ignoring the President? That's what I want to know. Hillary Clinton's going out there misleading and prevaricating and being dishonest about emails, and at the same time, President Trump's appointees are defending her conduct in court. In one case, they're saying her mishandling of classified information wasn't serious enough to warrant a damage assessment as required by law. This is the Trump people doing this. Trump would be livid, I'm sure, if he understood the full extent of the, based on the Washington Times report, the rank insubordination of his appointees and the bureaucrats running his agencies. But we can see that the President has taken notice, and that's a tremendous victory on behalf of the rule of law, and I'm confident we'll get some good results as a result. But there's a lot to get to, including a report to you about Judicial Watch's appearance in court this morning on a very important issue, and it relates to Hillary Rodham Clinton. Now, a few years ago, Judicial Watch began asking questions about Mrs. Clinton's Whitewater investigation. You may recall that Mrs. Clinton was subjected to a grand jury investigation and an Office of Special Independent Counsel investigation over her involvement in Whitewater and other matters. So there were all sorts of documents Judicial Watch was able to get, but it turns out there was a draft indictment of her involvement, draft indictment drafted by the prosecutors. They never filed it because they didn't think that they could get her convicted, but the government is withholding that from us. And why are they withholding it? And this, of course, began under the Obama administration. They made the argument. They're telling us there's A, grand jury secrecy, and B, Mrs. Clinton's personal privacy needs to be protected here. And our essential legal argument in response to that is we already know what went on, in the sense that much grand jury material has already been released through the special report issued by Ken Starr's Office of Independent Counsel, or his successor. And of course, Judicial Watch also got other documents detailing all sorts of grand jury material. So there's really no more grand jury secrecy or privacy to protect anymore. Now, the lower court ruled against us, and so we were before the appellate court here in the D.C. Circuit, which is just down the street. You can't see it from, I know I'm pointing to it, but we're just a few blocks away, and I think I can see the court from our offices here. So our attorney, Paul Orphanides, was in court today, and this is the troubling aspect. Battling lawyers for the Trump administration who are in court defending Hillary Clinton's, in my view, non-existent privacy interest in keeping this information about her past corrupt activities secret from the American people. Again, lawyers from the Trump administration. Attorney General Sessions runs the Justice Department. His appointees run the Justice Department. They are defending Hillary Clinton essentially in court. So I can't tell you how sad it is and disappointing and outrageous it is to go to these court hearings, and I'm sitting in the audience. I'm not a lawyer, so I get to sit and watch and see lawyers for the Trump administration defending Hillary Clinton's privacy interests. I don't know why on earth they would be defending her, and if I were President Trump, he should demand to know why his agencies are defending Hillary Clinton like this. Why is this happening? So we were in the court today, our lawyer was in the court today, and I don't know how it's going to go. You're peering at, when you go, this is what happens when you're in, I'm a non-lawyer, so forgive me if I don't get all the technical aspects right, but essentially you file a lawsuit at the district court level, at the federal level, to get access to documents under the Freedom of Information Act, which is the law that we use. And if you get an adverse result, the court rules against you over the fight you're in, you can appeal it to the circuit court, the appellate court. And so we're at the appellate court hearing here. There are 3 judges. And the courts were skeptical. They said that there would have to be extraordinary circumstances to release this draft grand jury indictment, or this draft indictment. And we said, essentially, it's, I don't know, paraphrasing the argument, well, there are these extraordinary circumstances here. All of this information is already out there. We already know there was an indictment made. We already know the sum and substance of the grand jury information there. We already know what Mrs. Clinton is alleged to have done wrong because of not only the Office of Independent Counsel special report, but also the report prosecutor memo that Judicial Watch obtained through the Freedom of Information Act. So there's really no more privacy or grand jury secrecy to protect. And, you know, my personal opinion is it's Hillary Clinton, and the courts are going to be skeptical of our efforts to hold her to account because she's part of the protected class. I just don't understand, and I've been doing this since 1998, working at Judicial Watch as Judicial Watch president. So I've seen a lot of court cases, and time again, the courts carve out exceptions when it's inconvenient for the politicians that are being protected or being put in the crosshairs as a result of our legal efforts to hold them to account through the Freedom of Information Act. We saw it during the Clinton administration, we saw it through the Bush administration, we saw it during the Obama administration, and now we're seeing the kind of the permanent bureaucracy, the deep state, once again working to protect Hillary Clinton. And I thought President Trump was going to change this. And, you know, based on what I know about what his views are, he doesn't want this to happen, but it's still happening. So I think we need to hold Jeff Sessions accountable. We need to hold Rod Rosenstein accountable. We need to, I don't know who's running the National Archives now. Whoever's running the National Archives is where these records are. We need to hold them accountable. But again, Judicial Watch was in court today trying to get access to this basic information about Hillary Clinton's misconduct, and we're being fought by Justice Department lawyers for President Trump. And I know why they don't want this material to come out, because it just shows, and it's a reminder about some of the issues Mrs. Clinton has. Now remember, Mrs. Clinton is just not your average citizen. We're not asking for a draft indictment of some poor sap who was looked at and they decided not to prosecute. She was the spouse of the president at the time. She was a senior advisor to the president at the time. She became a senator, a secretary of state, a 2-time, although failed candidate for the presidency. She's now on a gigantic book tour that frankly is without precedent for former candidates. She says she's still involved in politics. And we're in court arguing that there's a public interest, or having to make the argument against this administration that there's a public interest in getting information about not only what she was up to, but what the Office of Special Counsel or Independent Counsel was up to. And there was an argument broached today saying, and I don't think the courts buy it, well, the Office of Special Independent Counsel is no more. It's been substituted by, or the successor has been the Special Counsel regulation, the Robert Mueller investigation, which kind of makes our point that we want to know how special counsels operate. Do they take care of the politicians in inappropriate ways? I mean, the material we have, and I encourage you to go to our website and Google the following: Whitewater Documents, a criminal case against Hillary Clinton, where we detail the criminal case in the documents we already have. These are quotes from the prosecution memo. The Castle Grande transactions were crimes. Now, Castle Grande was a transaction Hillary Clinton was involved in, and they were alleging that they were crimes. Hillary Clinton, quote, destroyed her personal records. Does that sound familiar to you? A case of possible obstruction of justice. The April 1998 document says Clinton's sworn statements to the Resolution Trust Corporation which was a federal agency, the FDIC, and the Senate and the House of Representatives, and to the Office of Independent Counsel, reflected and embodied materially inaccurate stories. The memo uses the terms crimes, criminal, fraudulent, misrepresented, inaccurate, deceive, mislead, misstatement, and concealed 27 times in 20 pages. You've got to go online and read that document. If we can link it in the Facebook or link to the release in Facebook and the comment feed and maybe in the Twitter feed, we'll do that. But it's a devastating analysis of what Mrs. Clinton was up to. And essentially she was involved in a transaction related to a bank, a savings and loan in Arkansas. And she was the lawyer involved in this transaction, which was later found to be fraudulent. And her involvement and her law firm's involvement was hidden also from the FDIC and the Resolution Trust Corporation because the law firm was actually hired to represent the interests of the bank. And they were conflicted out. But rather than deprive themselves of federal money, they withheld that information from the government so they could get the government contract to represent this bank that they had a conflict of interest with because they were supposed to be representing the government's interest and the bank's interest in getting fraudulent money that may have been taken, when in fact they were involved in maybe some of the fraudulent activities that they were supposed to be working for the bank on, working for the bank to rectify. And Hillary Clinton was implicated in that, and it's one of the reasons the prosecutors allege she destroyed records. Now, some of this may be old news to people. You say, oh, well, who cares? I just got to say this generally. You know, the left and this establishment doesn't want to do anything about corruption. They never want to do. There's always an excuse not to do anything. We had an election and we should just leave Hillary Clinton alone. As if an election is a get-out-of-jail-free card for corrupt politicians who deserve to be held accountable to the rule of law. Let's say you got caught doing something at your job and you got fired for it, but it was a crime. Do you think prosecutors would say, oh, well, you got fired, so let's bygones be bygones? But as far as Washington is concerned, elections are kind of like an event horizon, past which no corruption can be ever pursued. So if it was raised during a campaign and then there was an election and the losing side was corrupt and criminal, well, we can't talk about it anymore because they lost the election and let bygones be bygones. This, by the way, from the same crowd that is going around tearing down statues of 19th century politicians because they don't like their views on certain issues. But we're not allowed to talk about Hillary Clinton. We're going to keep on talking about the corruption of Hillary Clinton and the Barack Obama administration because we need our government to start holding corrupt government officials to account. And we do it our way by suing in federal court.